If you want to find hiking opportunities in one of the most dramatic places in Nova Scotia on trails that are almost never packed, it's well worth coming here to Economy and up to the Economy River Wilderness Area. Now, there are opportunities here for short hikes and long hikes, even multi-day backcountry camping trips. It's worth starting here before you head into that wilderness area here at the Fundy Geopark Information Center. You can find out all kinds of information about the trails here. I've stopped here before heading up the River Phillip Road to the Devil's Bend Trail, which is where I'm on my walkabout today. Now, as a side note, this tower behind me, well, it wasn't always here. At one time, it was along the coast, and its purpose was to monitor bombing practice for fighters and bombers during World War II. In the center is where you'll find lots of valuable information about the military history of this part of Nova Scotia. This is also where you can find trail maps of Kenemy Canyon and the wilderness area. If you're planning to camp on the trails, you should register here for safety reasons before heading up to the trailhead, past the blueberry farms up the road. The Economy River Wilderness Area covers over 15,000 acres in Cumberland and Colchester counties of Nova Scotia. It's an area of forest wilderness in the heart of the Cobequid Mountains, lying between here in Economy and northward to Spring Hill. This is the start of the Devil's Bend Trail. Now, it'll be a little over 6 kilometers to the end of the trail and my destination, Economy Falls themselves. This trail is maintained by volunteers, and it is an official trail, but it actually starts on private land. So I will be hiking towards the Economy River Wilderness Area. I'm looking forward to it. This trail is part of the Kenemy Trail System, which is maintained by the Kenemy Trail Society under an agreement with Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change. There are over 36 kilometers of trails here, including Devil's Bend. These include a 1-kilometer Economy Falls Trail I'll see on the way out, the 18-kilometer Kenemy Canyon Trail, which I'll reach near the end of my hike, and the 2.5-kilometer Cobequid Escarpment Trail, which can easily be added to this hike to make a portion of it a loop. There are some off-highway vehicle routes which run through this wilderness area as well, often on old, unused roads. These are managed by the Snowmobilers Association of Nova Scotia and the All-Terrain Vehicle Association of Nova Scotia. This includes portions of the River Phillip Road where I started my hike, but that road becomes much less vehicle-friendly as it heads further into the wilderness area. That road is also open to mountain bikers as a way through the wilderness area. These forests are home to many species, including black bear and white-tailed deer. They're also home to the endangered mainland moose and fisher. The Economy River itself is a critical habitat for the endangered Inner Bay of Fundy Atlantic salmon. And of course, these forests help protect the river. This is a special ecological area. Development and resource extraction are not permitted once you get into the wilderness area. The canyon sees hardwoods on the hilltops and spruce stands in the ravine itself. In a wilderness area like this, the forest is allowed to grow and develop naturally. Wilderness areas are under the protection of the Wilderness Areas Protection Act. These lands protect the natural environment, but they do much more. They offer opportunities for education, research, wilderness recreation, sport fishing, hunting, and community volunteerism, just like the trail building. A lot goes into deciding the location and boundaries for wilderness areas, and consideration is given to providing habitat for those species at risk. Now, the name Economy has nothing to do with money. Economy is believed to come from the 18th century French Acadian l'économie, which in turn is an interpretation of the Mi'kmaq name for this land, which is Kenemi. Now, below me is actually Kenemi Canyon, and I'll be seeing that canyon very dramatically soon. The name Kenemi, well, it means piece of land that juts out into the sea. And that's exactly what Economy Point does when it reaches the Minas Basin. Of course, that isn't the only name here with indigenous origins. Cobequid means end of the flowing waters. Now, the Mi'kmaq were present on these lands for thousands of years, and their presence is reflected in legends and myths, including one involving Glooskap, who is said to have been responsible for creating the Bay of Fundy and the 5 Islands. The Devil's Bend Trail is generally considered a moderate or difficult trail to do, and it has nothing to do with the trail conditions itself. As you can see, they're pretty good. It's the fact that you go up and down throughout this canyon. There's a lot of elevation change. These trails are popular year-round, though they are certainly far more difficult in winter and early spring when there is snow and ice around. At different times of year, you'll see campers, anglers, and photographers coming out to enjoy the colors, the dramatic landscape, and the wildlife. The terrain can be a challenge at any time of year, so of course, as always, be prepared. For most people, this trail is best accessed between June and October, when the danger of ice has passed. The Devil's Bend Trail winds its way through all kinds of different landscapes. It takes you on the top of cliffs, through valleys, along these sandstone canyons that have been sculpted by nature over the years, and of course through both hardwood and softwood forests. There's truly a little bit of everything in here. And even the wildlife. All around me I can hear songbirds. Won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine. Well, I'm about 150 meters above the Economy River now, and this is Devil's Bend. Now, if you Google Devil's Bend, you'll find locations all over North America, roads and rivers, so forth, that are called Devil's Bend. And what that is a hairpin turn. This is what gives this trail its name. The cliff faces that edge Kenemi Canyon are known by geologists as the Edge of Avalonia. It sounds almost like a magical kingdom somewhere, but in fact, it is simply part of the Appalachian mountain range. The Cobequid Mountains run from Cape Chignecto through to Pictou County. These are old rocks, some almost 750 million years old. The canyon rock is made up of sediments, granites, and volcanic rock, which has been crushed by continental drift. There are also fossils to be found here if you look. This part of Nova Scotia was once connected to Europe as part of the Pangaea supercontinent. And a collision with what is now northern Africa resulted in the landscape we see, including the Cobequid-Chiboucto Fault, which extends from here all the way to Canso. Some of these inclines can be very, very steep. This river was once incredibly important to the region's economy. Logs were brought down from the Cobequid Mountains all the way to the Minas Basin, often for the shipbuilding industry. These days, there is still some forestry work in the area, blueberry farming, and of course, work involved in the sea like clam digging and weir fishing. Tourism has grown substantially, especially ecotourism involving hiking and camping in areas like this and exploring the coast on sea kayaks. There are also businesses like the ever-popular Dutchman's Cheese Farm that have their home only minutes down the road from this trail. So this is the intersection between the Escarpment Trail and the Devil's Bend Trail. Now the Escarpment Trail is a short trail, but it goes up the other side of Economy River to the same location, Economy Falls. Now to get to that trail, you actually have to walk through the river. You're gonna get wet, that's for sure. Oh, and what this also means is that I'm very close to the end of this trail and Economy Falls itself. Nova Scotia has over 70 protected wilderness areas, which include over 130 kilometers of managed trails, so hikers can get out and explore the natural beauty. Many also have old unused roads and trails which have existed in some cases for decades or even over a century. Other wilderness routes include water routes for kayaking or canoeing your way across. Well, this is the official end of the Devil's Bend Trail. Of course, few people come here and say, oh great, I finished the trail. What they're really coming up here for is to see Economy Falls, which is down 187 steps, which I'm gonna head down to in a minute. Up this other way is actually the Economy Falls Trail. If you only wanted to come see the falls themselves, there is a parking lot up the top here. It's only about 500 meters away. Much shorter route. Just before you hit the waterfall itself, you'll pass this well-worn path that goes up, up, up. Well, that's one of the access points to the Kenemy Canyon Trail, which is an 18-kilometer loop that goes right around the canyon. It's an absolutely beautiful hike. Now, some trail runners will do it in a day. They do it fairly quickly, actually. Others will backcountry camp. There are 2 backcountry camping sites at the end, so you can make this a 3-day journey. At the end of it, as you come close to the Escarpment Trail on the other side, you'll pass Newton Lake before coming back here. And then you can either take Devil's Bend all the way back to where I started, or you can head up Economy Falls and get to the road faster. This is Economy Falls. Now, people hike any one of the trails here to actually see this waterfall and spend time at it. It really is the focal point of the entire Kenemy Canyon trail system. This waterfall, though, didn't always look like this. If you had hiked to this spot before 1997, it would have been entirely different. In 1997, an entire wall of rock, 2,000 tons, actually collapsed into the river. And that's all those boulders you see near the base of the waterfall. Since then, the falls have been finding a new route. Spring floods and high water levels during rainy seasons are moving the boulders around and creating a new path for the water. These falls have been known for their beauty for a long time. And back in the early 1900s, when this river was still used to move timber logs to Economy, there was an apron built across the top of the falls to allow the logs to fall over the waterfall itself. These falls really are the crown jewel of the Devil's Bend Trail, and they make all the effort walking that trail so worth it. Well, I'm headed back out now, and I'm gonna head back out on the Economy Falls Trail to River Phillips Road. This is another route to Economy Falls. This will take you to the top of the falls. This is also an easier, more formal way to get onto the Kenemy Canyon Trail, that 18-kilometer loop. Well, it's easier if you're not coming from the bottom of the falls. If you're coming from the bottom of the falls, you either have to take the hill up to this point, or you have to take that rough path that I showed you at the bottom. But either way, there are lots of options. Devil's Bend and Kenemy Canyon certainly are beautiful and unique. And I suppose in part, that's why this is a protected wilderness area. Well, I'm climbing out of the canyon now, but after the break, I'm headed off to another wilderness area, this time one to the northeast of here, the Wentworth Valley Wilderness Area. Won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine. A little over half an hour from Devil's Bend and Kenemy Canyon, on a logging road just off Highway 4, you'll find the entrance to the Pasture Falls Trail. Now you come in the road a bit, there's a little parking lot, and then you can head off on what is a relatively short hike, but one that has lots of rivers and lots of waterfalls. So this little valley in the trail is quite wet, and if you look up that way, you can see that this is probably a river, almost looks like a waterfall at times, I think. Whether it's spring runoff or when it rains, the water just flowing down here. I bet this trail actually gets washed out at times. Anyways, this flows down to the Wallace River, which runs along the highway, and this whole area is the headwater for that river. It flows from here downstream, widening out considerably towards the Northumberland Strait, where it is a very important Atlantic salmon run. The trail itself is a mixture of ATV track, former logging access, and trail bridges and accesses made by various people. You can follow this route for well over 10 kilometers, and in fact, some trail maps for Pasture Falls suggest a hiking distance of almost that distance round trip. But in reality, if you're just hiking to the falls like I am on this journey, it's only about 1.5 kilometers in each direction. One of the nice things about this trail is there's so many rivers and waterfalls to see. I'm only 600 meters in on this hike, and already I'm at Heart Lake Brook. And just upriver a little bit is Heart Lake Brook Lower Falls. I'm gonna take a little look before I continue on. So this is the Heart Lake Brook Lower Falls. And now there's an Upper Falls and a Lower Falls. The Upper Falls are about 2 kilometers further upstream. There's a couple ways to get there, and one of them, believe it or not, is bushwhacking along this stream. That's definitely not for me today. The Upper Falls are 2 stacked 90-degree drops, one of about 30 feet, one of about 10 feet. This one is 2 15-foot drops, and I'm in the middle of the second one. Believe it or not, this is only the first waterfall on this hike today. This is kind of the added bonus one. The Upper Falls are about 200 meters from the shore of Heart Lake itself. Most commonly, people drive into the cottage community of Heart Lake and go down a ravine to see those falls. There is no real path there to see them, but they aren't far from the road. Just a note, the downhill walk to those falls might be only 200 meters, but it's at a 45-degree angle. The entire area I'm hiking through is part of the Wentworth River Wilderness Area. It covers almost 5,000 acres across Cumberland and Colchester counties and protects an area of the Cobequid Mountains. Part of nearby Ski Wentworth's cross-country trails go through the wilderness area. In these mountains, you'll find hardwoods like sugar maple and white ash and yellow birch, as well as red spruce, hemlock, and many other species. Coming off the mountains, the area is littered with brooks and rivers, ponds, and wetlands. This area is particularly important in providing winter protection for the endangered mainland moose population. Within this wilderness area, off-highway vehicles are permitted on some trails, including this one, especially where this one is so close to Heart Lake cottage country. This wilderness also includes an unnamed peak, which has been confirmed as the highest point on mainland Nova Scotia at 365 meters above sea level. So if you have any good ideas for mountain names, this might be your opportunity. I can hear Horse Pasture Brook ahead of me. Horse Pasture Brook. And this is where I find Horse Pasture Brook Falls. Now, interestingly, when you hear falls, you think of a single waterfall. But in this case, the falls is actually plural. There are 6, 7, maybe 8 waterfalls as you go downstream from here. Of course, I could continue hiking up the trail behind me. It continues up for many, many kilometers and a 300-foot incline. But today, it's all about waterfalls. From the trail edge, you work your way down any number of side trails towards the water's edge. You'll want to be going downstream from here to see the waterfalls. Well, that's the first 2 on this brook. Let's see what else there is. You won't reach the base of every waterfall, and some access points are obvious, some are not. Some spots it will simply depend on how wet it has been, whether it is worth climbing the extra distance down to the river. Robert Louis Stevenson once wrote, "It's not so much for its beauty that the forest makes a claim upon men's hearts, as for that subtle something, that quality of air, that emanation from old trees, that so wonderfully changes and renews a weary spirit." My journey into Kennemee Canyon and here past rivers and waterfalls, along trails that aren't city trails. They're trails made by people looking for that subtle something that nature provides. Wherever your next walkabout finds you, I hope it rests your weary spirit.
Sunshine.